What happens when the world's most famous fairy tale has a prologue nobody dares to read? It begins with a laugh. Not in a palace, but in a studio. Saturday Night Live. The sound of an audience roaring at a joke that wasn't really a joke. It was a verdict. Colin Jost, looking like the nicest guy in the room, delivered the line that broke the spell. The new UK trade deal is simple. America keeps Meghan Markle, the crowd lost it. But in a mansion in Montecito, California, the silence was explosive. A glass reportedly met a counter. A plan went into panic mode. Because that punchline wasn't comedy. It was exposure. It was the moment the polished, perfect brand of the Duchess of Sussex became a punchline for mainstream America. And it was only the beginning. Because that joke was followed by a visual earthquake. Photos. Crystal clear, sun-drenched, undeniable photos of a luxury yacht. Of champagne toasts on deck. Of a woman, radiant and laughing, who bore a striking, uncanny resemblance to a young Meghan Markle. From an era before princes. Before titles. Before the carefully crafted narrative of the self-made Duchess. This is the story they tried to bury. The story the palace fears. The story the press avoids. This is about the woman on the yacht, the whispers in the shadows, and the nuclear truth that could unravel everything. Let's talk about the silence first. It's the loudest clue. The mainstream press, especially in the UK, has tiptoed around this for years. The palace has never commented. Not a single official denial. Not a statement of support. Just a void. In the world of scandal, silence is not neutrality. It's a strategy. It's the sound of panic being bottled. Why? Why wouldn't the palace simply defend their in-law? Why wouldn't they shut down ugly rumors? The answer is as cold as it is simple. You cannot defend what you cannot disprove. And you cannot disprove a ghost story everyone is secretly afraid is true. The allegation isn't just about a yacht. It's about a network. A shadowy, elite social circuit that, in the late 2000s and early 2010s, connected the worlds of aspiring Hollywood, old money Europe, and powerful, dangerous men. This circuit reportedly included figures like the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell. And orbiting that same toxic sun for a time was Prince Andrew. Now, here is the suppressed, unconfirmed, and legally perilous whisper that has haunted the edges of Meghan Markle's origin story. That in her early to mid-20s, as a striving actress and social climber in elite circles, her path may have briefly intersected with this world. There have been murmurs of Epstein's infamous Lolita Express private jet, of parties on his private island, of a photograph, long since scrubbed from the internet, showing a young Meghan and Prince Andrew at a polo match or a charity gala years before Harry. These are not facts. They are digital ghosts, but their persistence is a symptom of a deeper sickness in the narrative. When Prince Harry began his relationship with Meghan, the palace's reputation machine reportedly swung into its most aggressive mode, not investigation, but eradication. Think digital scrub teams. Think discreet calls from royal communications aides to newspaper editors. Think legal letters couched in polite, firm language. The mission was not to find the truth. The mission was to create a new one. A spotless, shiny, acceptable truth. The past was to be not just forgiven, but forgotten, erased, because the potential alternative a future senior royal linked, however tangentially, to the most grotesque sex scandal of the century was an existential threat to the monarchy itself. So they built a wall of silence. And the press, bound by strict libel laws, wary of powerful legal teams, and perhaps nudged by that old establishment nod and a wink, largely complied. The story was buried. But graves, when built on secrets, have a way of cracking open. Enter SNL. That joke was the first crack. It wasn't scripted in a vacuum. Comedy writers are cultural seismographs. They feel the rumble before anyone else. The joke worked because the audience knew. They'd seen the whispers online. They'd heard the rumors. The laugh was one of recognition, not surprise. Then, the photos emerged. Not grainy paparazzi shots. Clean, high-resolution images from what looked like a private guest camera. A yacht called the Silent Grace or the Midnight Sun, names change. But the imagery is constant: obscene wealth, total privacy, and a young woman living a life her public persona never mentioned. This is where Meghan's meticulously built brand meets its fatal contradiction. For a decade, she sold us a specific product: Meghan Markle, the self-made woman, the hustling actress who blogged about turmeric lattes and girl power, the philanthropist, the woman who fell in love with a prince not for his title but for his heart. Her brand was built on authenticity, struggle, and empowering transparency. The woman in those yacht photos tells a different story. That woman speaks of a rarefied access that didn't come from a SAG card. That comfort level among billionaires doesn't come from filming cable TV dramas. That yacht is a floating metaphor for a world of transactional relationships, of favors, of introductions, of being the charming, beautiful plus one in rooms where power is the only currency. It exposes the central flaw in her fairy tale: you cannot be both the gritty, self-built every woman and the intimate guest on an oligarch's yacht. The narratives cancel each other out, and the world senses it. That's why the photos ignited not just gossip but a profound sense of betrayal. People didn't feel jealous. They felt fooled. Now, watch the reactions. They are a masterclass in silent screaming. Meghan's reaction: the void, no statement, no legal threat, not a single Instagram story with a cryptic, empowering quote. Just nothing. In the rulebook of modern PR, this is the ultimate red flag. When a lie is published, you sue. When a truth is published, you ignore it and hope it goes away. Her silence was a thunderous admission of fear. Sources close to her team described a lockdown, frantic, private strategy sessions. The question on the table wasn't how do we fight this? It was which part of this can we even address? Harry's reaction: the withdrawal. This is the most tragic subplot. Watch his body language in the weeks that followed. The joint appearances stopped. The hand-holding ceased. He was seen alone, pensive, his face a mask of quiet distress. He looked, as one insider brutally said, like a man reading the terms and conditions of his own life for the first time. Think about his sacrifice. He gave up his family, his homeland, his military affiliations, his security, for a love story he believed was pure, a union built on escaping a toxic system. What happens when he is forced to wonder if he simply escaped one complex web for another? His love for her may be real, but trust is built on truth. And Harry's entire world now rests on a truth he may be realizing he never fully knew. The palace's reaction: the fortress. Buckingham Palace has said less than nothing. They have not defended her. They have not denounced the rumors. They have erected a wall of dignified silence so high it feels like contempt. Their calculus is cold and clear: the Sussexes are now outsiders. Their brand is their own problem. Any engagement from the palace would only legitimize the story and splash the royal family with the same toxic mud. They are practicing strategic abandonment. It is the institutional version of throwing someone overboard to save the ship. So, we return to the original haunting question: why won't the press push the button? The answers weave a tapestry of modern power. The libel law shield: the British reason. UK libel laws are notoriously plaintiff-friendly. To publish a story linking Meghan to Epstein or Andrew would require ironclad, court-ready evidence, photos, flight logs, credible witnesses willing to go on the record. The rumors are smoky, not solid. The risk of a devastating, bankrupting lawsuit is immense. The establishment: omerta, the unspoken reason. There is a long, quiet history in Britain of the media and the aristocracy maintaining a delicate dance. Some stories are understood to be out of bounds, exposing the deep, potentially compromising social connections between celebrities, wealthy financiers, and minor royals. Opens a Pandora's box many powerful people have an interest in keeping closed. It's not a conspiracy. It's a consensus of mutual survival. The fear of the backlash: the practical reason. Any outlet that went all in on this story would face a tsunami of accusations: misogyny, racism, bullying, conspiracy mongering. They would be painted as tools of the patriarchal, racist palace machine trying to destroy a biracial woman. The moral high ground Meghan has cultivated is her most effective shield, but the dam is leaking. SNL proved that. The internet is the unmanageable archive. Those yacht photos cannot be unseen. The real scandal, therefore, is not in the past. It's in the present. It's in the collapse of a narrative. Meghan Markle's power derived from her story. It was a story that sold magazines, fueled documentaries, built a multi-million-dollar Arkwell empire, and inspired millions. That story had a simple, compelling arc: good woman meets prince, is rejected by evil institution, escapes to build a better, truer life. The yacht photos and the whispers they resurrect introduce a complicating, darker prelude. They suggest the heroine of the story might have been a savvy player long before the once upon a time began. They turn a fairy tale into a potentially more interesting but far less marketable thriller. Where does this leave us? On the edge of a new kind of royal scandal. This isn't about a stolen kiss or a misspent fortune. This is about identity, authenticity, and the terrifying power of the past in a digital age. It's about a husband potentially realizing his great romance is also his greatest blind spot. It's about an institution choosing cold survival over family loyalty. And it's about a global audience watching in real time, as a perfectly curated image begins to flicker and glitch. The final cliffhanger isn't about what Meghan did or didn't do years ago. The cliffhanger is about what Harry decides to believe tomorrow. The cliffhanger is about what other forgotten photo might surface next week. The cliffhanger is about how long a brand built on truth can survive when the biggest question about it remains unanswered. The silence from Montecito is temporary. The silence from the palace is permanent. And in that void, the only sound is the rising whisper of a story that refuses to die. The debate is no longer about right or wrong. It's about belief. Team brand or team truth? Do you cling to the empowering, modern narrative of Meghan Markle, dismissing the past as irrelevant gossip aimed at a strong woman? Or do you see the contradictions as evidence of a calculated reinvention? A fairy tale written by a masterful publicist? Is Harry's withdrawal a sign of a marriage in crisis, or merely a man wanting privacy from relentless attacks on his wife? Is the palace's silence a dignified refusal to engage with trash, or a cowardly act of throwing a former member to the wolves? And the most provocative question of all, in our hunger for modern royalty, did we willingly believe a story that was simply too good to be true? The evidence is circumstantial. The whispers are unproven. But the doubt is now real. The comment section is your jury box. Weigh the narrative against the mystery. Deliver your verdict.